Hey everyone, and welcome as we continue our study through the New Testament, looking at the New Testament church. And today we're going to be in Hebrews chapter 7, verses 15 through 28. And this is a continuation of what we were looking at yesterday, which was Melchizedek as a high priest and how Melchizedek was greater than Abraham. And we're going to show now how Jesus is like Melchizedek, but even greater than Melchizedek was. But we're going to dive a little bit more into the parallel for that. So we'll read this real quick and then get into the notes. It says, "This change," starting in chapter 7, verse 15, "this change has been made very clear since a different priest who is like Melchizedek has appeared. Jesus became a priest not by meeting the physical requirements of belonging to the tribe of Levi, but by the power of a life that cannot be destroyed. And the psalmist pointed this out when he prophesied, 'You are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek.' Yes, the old requirement about the priesthood was set aside because it was weak and useless, for the law never made anything perfect. But now we had confidence in a better hope, through which we draw near to God. This new system was established with a solemn oath. Aaron's descendants became priests without such an oath. But there was an oath regarding Jesus, for God said to him, 'The Lord has taken an oath and will not break his vow. You are a priest forever.' Because of this oath, Jesus is the one who guarantees the better covenant with God. There were many priests under the old system, for death prevented them from remaining in office. But because Jesus lives forever, his priesthood lasts forever. Therefore, he is able once and forever to save those who come to God through him. He lives forever to intercede with God on their behalf. He is the kind of high priest we need because he is holy and blameless, unstained by sin. He has been set apart from sinners and has been given the highest place of honor in heaven. Unlike those other high priests, he does not need to offer sacrifices every day. They did this for their own sins first and then for the sins of the people. But Jesus did this once for all when he offered himself as the sacrifice for the people's sin. The law appointed high priests who were limited by human weakness, but after the law was given, God appointed his son with an oath, and his son has been made the perfect high priest forever." And so, just to look at this real quick, like the change of how God appointed priest, um, which we looked at in verses 11 through 14 yesterday, has been made very clear by the appointment of Jesus as a different priest, right? He, like Melchizedek in the parallel here, is a priest forever. Um, Obviously, we talked about this yesterday. Melchizedek didn't live forever, but he's technically given a priesthood forever because his record of his priesthood never ends. And so that's where the parallel is, right? And so, um, since that, Jesus' resurrection from the dead shows that he is the power of life and he can't be destroyed. And so he's going to live forever. He's going to be the high priest forever. Because his high priesthood is in the order of Melchizedek is superior than that of the Levites, he supersedes them as priest. And so that's what Paul's using. Or I'm sorry, I keep saying Paul because I did that. Or the author here is saying that the weakness of the priesthood under the old covenant is highlighted in that those priests died. Right? They're human. They were died, so their office discontinued, and a new high priest was assigned. And they were themselves sinful. Right? They had sinful people, so they had to offer their own sacrifices first for themselves before they could even offer sacrifices for the for the people. But in contrast, Jesus, who is the new high priest, never sinned and will never die. Right? Excuse me, making him a more effective and permanent high priest. And so again, this is that argument to the Jewish people who understood that what the high priest was and the role that he took. Like reading this for us, it doesn't mean as much. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It's like, okay, we get it. He's our high priest. That's good, you know. But for them, this was a new concept. This was something, and it was hard for them to wrap their minds around. And so this is why the author goes into so much detail and parallel here to help them understand who Jesus was. And so he goes on to say that the law never made anything perfect, right? The law never accomplished what God planned to accomplish through the superior high priesthood of Jesus, right? The law couldn't do it, but he could do it through Jesus, and that is the complete removal of sin and guaranteeing eternal salvation, right? The daily sacrifices and stuff like that could not do that. There had to be an ultimate sacrifice, and that's where Christ came in, and so. the author goes on to write that he was able once and forever to save, or this is able to save completely, right? Since Jesus lives forever, the salvation he brings also lasts forever. Because he was perfect, because his salvation was complete, right? There's nothing else. Like, he can continually cover our sins through his sacrifice. And so it goes on to talk about drawing near to an eternal God, we need an eternal priest, right? And in order to, excuse me, draw near to an eternal God, we need an eternal priest. And Jesus will intercede or appeal to God for us as our high priest of the new covenant, and this is lasts forever, right? This isn't like the human high priest who they died and their sacrifices were insufficient. This is permanent and eternal. Jesus' sacrifice was eternal. His high priesthood is eternal, and so these things last forever, and so he can intercede on our behalf forever. And so the other thing is that Jesus was unstained by sin and set apart from sinners. So we see that, right? It makes him superior to the priests of old because they had to deal with their own sins. They had to deal with their own sins first, and then they had to deal with the sins of the people. Christ was perfect, so he didn't have to, he has been given the highest place of honor in heaven, and so, or I think the literal translation is exalted higher than the heavens, but so this shows us the uniqueness of his of him as the high priest, and this is claimed and said. The author finishes this once and for all. Right? There's no more sacrifices. There's no more thing. This is something that's done once and never to be repeated. Christ's sacrifice is done once, covers everything for all time, for all those who follow him, and it never has to be repeated again. So, as we continue through this, we're going to keep going further. I think we're about done with the we're about done with the Melchizedek and the high priest parallels, but just looking at that all this, and so I hope that, as always, y'all are learning from these as we continue to go through them, and continue to push through and read all this and go through it. I hope you're getting something from it. I hope you're pulling from it. As always, I encourage you, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, to go ahead and do that, because that way it will allow you to follow along with us and get the alerts and the notes when we push through those. And as always, I appreciate everyone who takes time to watch, and I hope y'all have a wonderful day.